This video is entitled "An Islamic State has been declared in Birmingham." I know that that sounds like an incredibly extreme thing to say, but I believe it's justified. I believe the challenge that Ayub Khan, the Member of Parliament for Peribar, has laid down to the British state is so significant that we absolutely need to address it, not as a petition, not as an argument about Aston Villa, not as an argument about Israel, but instead as a direct challenge to the sovereignty of the United Kingdom. This man has raised a gang to say that Jewish people are not entitled to come to this part of Birmingham. Now, I will tell you, it doesn't worry me what you think about Israel. It doesn't worry me what you think about Gaza. It doesn't worry me whether you're a Conservative, whether you're Labour, whether you're a Christian, whether you are a Jew or whether you are a Muslim. This isn't about football. The mainstream media will tell you it's about football, but it's not. It's actually about a challenge to the British state and the sovereignty of a new series of countries, tribal areas within the United Kingdom. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. More than any time that I've ever said in my life, I want you to share this video because what I'm about to tell you is so shocking and so important that we need your support in order to help us. Also, oh my God, one of our viewers is promoting this book. It's called Born Again by Shane Clarke. The link is in the description. It's about what it would be like to be you and then suddenly to be reborn as a baby. And he goes through all of the experiences that baby would have in the prism of his knowledge about the way life is today. The link is in the description. Please do support this person. So, okay. I'm going to be accused in this video of being shrill. I'm going to be accused of going too far. I'm going to be accused of being, I don't know, damaging community relations or any of that sort of thing. I could sit for the first minute of this video and explain to you that I'm not a racist or I'm not against this or any of those sorts of things. What I will say to you in my defense before I say anything else is this. I was the person as a political advisor who advised Asghar Majid to become the first Muslim mayor of a royal borough. And I'll tell you why I did that. Not just because he was a Conservative, not just because he was a family man, not just because he'd served the community and was brilliant on economics, but also because his genuine belief in God, was actually something that was going to improve the area. And believe it or not, they were so conservative as a family that even though his wife had died, his sister gave up a very well-paid job for a year in order to be mayoress. And, you know, that cost them an absolute fortune to do it. But they did it because they're decent, honest and honourable people. Now, I make that point because I'm pretty sick of people talking about Islamophobia. I'm not interested in Islamophobia. What I'm interested in is tribal areas or what I call settler areas. So we have a group of people in this country who are extremely angry about what Israel has done. Now, I know that that includes some of you, and certainly I believe that the Israeli Defense Force has gone too far. But think about this. Israel has taken over the West Bank, and the reason they took over the West Bank was because in 1967, they were invaded. And after that, they started to build these settlements. Now, people in the British left, people in the Islamic movement, and indeed most of the governments of the world have turned round and said it is completely unacceptable for the Palestinians to be expected to create a state when there are so many settler communities breaking up the area. And yet, those same very people believe it is acceptable for Birmingham, for Nelson, for the East End of London to have settler communities. And what I mean by that is this. First of all, I have no problem with immigration. Journeymen can travel from place to place. That is part of our history and our heritage. But what has happened in Britain and what has happened in Europe is rather different, isn't it? There isn't an ethnic minority person on every single street. That's not true. There are white areas, there are black areas, and there are Asian areas. And the reason for that is incredibly simple. Birds of a feather flock together. I, like you, because you're my viewers, but I like my family more, and therefore I would hang around with them before I hung around with you, but I'd hang around with you before I hung around with a Bengali. And that is the point, isn't it? Because what we've seen in Birmingham is simply not a concern about Israel's performance in Gaza. What we've seen instead is Ayub Khan, the Member of Parliament for Perrybar, saying to his people, come along and threaten the police. They've said that there is going to be unrest and protests. Well, hang on a second. When the police say that Tel Aviv coming to Birmingham will have both protests, okay, we get that, demonstrations, get that, but also more general unrest, what do we mean? I'll tell you what we don't mean. British police have spent years dealing with football violence. They're some of the world's most experienced people in doing it. I'm a Scouser, I certainly know that. But what they're now saying is that the risk of general unrest is going to be a problem. And I'll tell you why they're saying that. Because the threat is not to the fans. The threat is a more general insurrection. Ayub Khan and his bunch of militants have not said that they're going to protest the match. They're not saying that they're going to do a protest. They're not saying they're going to hold up banners or put out leaflets, the things that you and I say. They've called up the irregulars. Now, if the police or the council or indeed Aston Villa are upset at me for saying that, well, I will tell you, look at the intelligence. The reality is that we have seen time and time again that when a tribal area, that is to say, an area that is now dominated in the United Kingdom by Islam, when that area is threatened by an outside force, and that outside force in this case is the United Kingdom, when it's threatened by that, they are treated entirely differently. I will tell you what the problem I have with this thing with Aston Villa. First of all, I will tell you something. I'm not impressed by everything the Israeli Defence Force has done. I think it's indefensible to say that you're going to make part of the peace deal allowing food to the Gazans. You know, even if there's Hamas about, you've got to give the food to people. I'm not impressed with everything that they've done. But it's not about football. It's not about Aston Villa. It's not about Israel. I'll tell you what it's about. It's about the fact that this area now says, we are a Muslim area. We have the things that you know already, a different policing because it's done through community leaders, a different set of politics because of councillors elected on their ethnicity and their religion rather than on their party politics. We have a different set of laws administered by Sharia councils. We have a different language, Urdu. We have a different religion. We have a different dress code. These people are saying that Aston is an Islamic tribal area and that the British state cannot insist on British state law in this area. And I'm telling you that that is wholly unacceptable. Look at what's happened for the past 48 hours. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has sought to challenge this decision. Has he succeeded yet? No, he hasn't. And I'll tell you why he hasn't succeeded yet. It's an assertion of sovereignty. And I'm going to explain to you what sovereignty is and the importance of it. Sovereignty is, it's hard to explain, but effectively it's the belief that we own the territory that we live on. So there are often disputes about sovereignty. As an example, people in Northern Ireland, some of them believe it should be Ireland, and that's a sovereign territory of Ireland. Some people believe it ought to be the United Kingdom, and they have various claims. And the Irish will say, well, it's because it's one island together, and the Northern Irish Protestants will say, well, you know, we're in the majority. But those are the arguments about sovereignty. But the argument about sovereignty in this case is very simple. This is an Islamic area and the British state does not have the power to come in. And I will tell you what goes even further than that. The fact that the police have been cowards. Now, we all know that the police have been dreadful. And I will tell you this. If you are a police officer who's prioritised your promotion to sergeants over the abuse of children, then you're never going to be fully on the United Kingdom's side. But now what's happened is not only have the police been, as usual, more concerned about community cohesion than they have about the threat of terrorism, not only have they done that, but they've also been infiltrated, because the community safety group, I think it's called the Safety Advisory Group to Aston Villa, which involves the police, which involves the security services, which involves the council, those people, and we've not got a full list published, by the way, but the names we do know are people who have jihadi tendencies, people who've been accused of anti-Semitism, people who believe that we should, as a United Kingdom, be more concerned about issues in the Islamic world than we should be about the freedom of our own people. We know that it's been taken over. So now let me tell you what the transaction is. So the media have said that the transaction is, oh, it's a bit dangerous for Tel Aviv fans to come here. I'm telling you, forget Tel Aviv, forget Aston Villa, forget football, forget any of it. I'm saying the transaction is very simply this. We have, for the first time in British history, challenged a tribal area. This area has its principles. Ayub Khan was elected as a pro-Gaza MP, in my view, a jihadi MP, but he's one of that Hezbollah group associated with Jeremy Corbyn. They've elected the person that they want. And that man has now threatened the country. If you allow a bunch of Jews to walk down our streets, we will give you trouble. I don't know what the security services has said about the nature of the unrest that they're concerned about, but there is an unrest they are concerned about, and it is not about football. So they've asserted that. They've already asserted in this area that Sharia courts are important. They've already enforced the dress code. They've already forced the schools to no longer teach about Christianity. They've already encouraged people to come from Pakistan rather than marry local people. They've already encouraged their language and maintained their religion. I am telling you this, it's not Britain. It's not the United Kingdom. Ayub Khan is offended because he knows for a fact that this is not Britain. This is former British territory. And what we have to do more than anything else is say no. Now, screw the fact they're from Tel Aviv. Screw the fact that they're Jewish. We need to say the following. You don't have the whip hand over British territory. If somebody operates illegally, then they will be stopped from operating illegally. But if they are legally going to a football match, we will open up the streets. And that's not because we endorse Israel. It's not because we care. It's because you've said to us now that you are the decision makers over British territory. And we're saying to you, no, you're not. But I think we need to go further than that. In Denmark, they have come up with a new law about non-Western zones. Effectively, if over 60%, I'm making this up, it's something like 60%, if over 60% of a particular Danish area is now no longer Christian, no longer Danish speaking, no longer ethnically Danish, then they're going to break it up. People are going to be moved out forcibly if necessary, and they're going to move Danish people in. There is nothing wrong with immigration, but there is a problem with people settling. We live in a world where we accept that it was wrong what the white Europeans and the British people did to the native tribes of America. We do accept that. And we accept that what the conquistadors did in South America to the Aztecs and the Incas was wrong. But we are allowing it to happen in Britain. I'm going to tell you what I want you to do, and you should perhaps tell me what you think in the comments is right or wrong. I think we should stop thinking about this in terms of football, and we should say these are Islamic states that have been set up in Britain, not by bad people, not by terrorists, not by anything like that, but people who believe, who've been told to believe that Britain is a place where nothing is important in terms of culture. Nothing is important in terms of heritage where nothing existed until the Windrush began. You've been told that you are allowed to set up an Islamic State in Britain, and we need to say, no, you can't. And I believe that that is the message that we should take forward. Please do forward this to people, but also please do buy this book. The link is in the description. You know what? He's a good guy and he's one of our viewers. But more than anything else, I want to thank you for the way that you've supported this channel, because genuinely, we need to get this message out. Forget football. It's about sovereignty. And the sovereignty of Peribar at the moment resides with an Islamic State. And it's not that the Islamic State, this particular Islamic State, is in any way evil. I'm not accusing them of anything, but it should not exist. Until next time, goodbye.